Alright, this is our 2019 Honda Pilot. It's got about 44,500 miles. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be changing the oil. We're going to take an oil sample and send it into Blackstone Labs just to see how our engine and oil are doing. We're going to be rotating the tires and we're going to change the rear differential fluid. Let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is jack up the vehicle, but before we do that, we need to loosen our lug nuts. It's a lot easier when they got the weight of the car on the ground. So we got our key for our locking lug nut. This is a 21mm socket for the Honda Pilot. So we're just going to go around and just barely break loose every lug nut so that when we have it in the air, it'll be easy. So I'm just going to do that all the way around. Okay, so we'll start by jacking up the front. We've already got our lug nuts loosened so that we won't have a problem once we get it in the air. I have another video on my channel just about the jack points, so go in some more detail. Our jack position on the front under the vehicle here is that point right there. If you want that, I'll try to remember to put that link in the description to the jack point video. I'm going to show them this rear jack point. There's our rear jack point right there. So we decided we're going to take this tire off. We're going to rotate it anyway. So if we take the tire off, it gives us a really good access to that filter from the side. This tire is going to end up rotating to the back. Put it right back here. Although you can place the tire under the car for added security, we've already got jack stands and a jack, so that's why I'm not doing that. So see, there's our oil filter. What a great view. That's the easiest to get to. You're going to see in the design of this, the problem is that no matter what you do, when you take that off, oil's going to drip right here. So we're going to get a small piece of plastic and drape over that so that it'll save us some cleanup time. So I just cut a little piece off of our plastic sheeting that we have down on the ground. Gonna shove it in right there so that when we bust that loose, it's gonna help us control some of that drip. Oil filter wrench. Okay. Let's let that drip down. There's our oil filter. We're going to take, we're going to leave that plastic there until I wipe that surface clean and put our new oil filter in there. So I'm just going to let that plastic sheeting stay right there. Reach my hand up in here. This is definitely worth doing from the side by taking that tire off. So for somebody like me that rotates the tires with the oil changes, it's especially convenient. But even if you weren't rotating your tires, the time it would take to take that one tire off and put it back on would be worth it, in my opinion, to not have that stuff dripping where you're at. Okay, we've already put some fresh oil on this black ring, and we'll confirm again that our black ring is still attached to our old oil filter. You always want to make sure it didn't stick to the vehicle, or you'll have bad oil leaks. All right. So putting on a new filter. I'm going to go ahead and take off this old plastic sheeting now. It's got a little oil on it. We have a very clean job here so far. So I'm going to hand tighten that filter. That's all it needs. So that is done. Okay, so now that our filter is done, we got new gloves on. I'm going to drain our oil, and then after we've drained it a little bit, we're going to stop it and get a sample so that we can send it out for testing. All right. Let me show them the Fomoto valve. So if you haven't seen my videos of the Fomoto valve, this is it. So let's see, right here. This is our Fomoto valve. So to do this oil change, we just make sure our pan is lined up to catch the oil. We're gonna move this valve this way and push it that way. We'll let a little bit drain. I think I'll just catch my sample like that. There you go, while it's running, I think I'll just catch it. Yeah. So we cut our sample while it was running. We don't want to get the very first oil that comes out. We want to let a little run out, then catch your sample. So we'll send this off to Blackstone Labs and see how our engine and how our oil is doing. Partly because we've been changing the oil every 5,000 miles, and we're using a 20,000 mile oil. It's a non-turbo engine, and so we're basically trying to see if it's safe to go 7,500 miles. So this particular oil change will have right at 7,000, a little over 7,000. And I would have waited till 7,500, but we're getting ready to travel, so I wanted to find out. So it's a little over 7,000, so it'll be close enough for this test. So our oil's draining out. While that's draining, I'm gonna start taking my tires off. Okay, so we're barely dripping anything now. So we're gonna close this Fomoto valve. So I'm gonna push in and down. That closes it. So now our valve is closed. I'm gonna clean off the surface. Get all the oil off the Fomoto valve. Very clean process. So we're done. Our Fomoto valve is in good shape, no leaks. We're gonna pull this oil up and we're gonna refill it from the top, and we'll be done. So the Pilot takes 5.7 quarts of oil. That's what it says in the manual, and I found that to be exactly true. So I have this picture where I marked 1/10 of a quart. So It's at the 1.7. This is 1.8, 1.9, and 2 quarts. So I'm going to add 1.7, and then I'll add 2, and then 2, and I'll know I have 5.7 quarts. So we're going to add this 1.7, come back, fill it up to the 2, fill it up to the 2 again, and we'll have exactly what we need. Alright, so we're going to get our cap, clean that off, set it here, get our funnel. Kind of got to get a funnel that goes down in where that's at. It's kind of way down in there. Most fill caps would be right on top. This one you got to have a little bit of a funnel to do it. So. Alright, so we'll put our cap back on. When we get done with everything today, we'll go ahead and start the engine up, let it run for a few minutes, and then we'll shut it off, let it sit for about 10 minutes, and I'll double check the level. But once you've done a car one time and you really keep track of how much oil it takes, it should be the same after that, and I found that to be the case. That's why I went ahead and put exactly 5.7 in. But I'll check it just to make sure. So our oil change is done. Alright, now we're going to change our rear differential fluid. We do this every 15,000 miles. We're going to have 2 bolts, a fill bolt and a drain bolt. Both of them take just a 3/8 inch breaker bar. That's what goes in these bolts to turn it. So no socket adapters on the end. This is a 3/8 like you would put in a 3/8 socket. That's what you use for these bolts. And the drain bolt has a magnet, which we're going to want to wipe all the metal shavings off with the rag. You'll find the most metal shavings the first time you do this job. You'll find a little bit the second time you do it. But after that, you'll find a very small amount on the magnet, because it's broken in at that point. And we also, I would recommend, if you're a 3/8 inch breaker bar, this is probably a standard length, they're not very long, I would recommend having a piece of pipe for torque where you can put this in, and then you can have this pipe on here to give you a longer length, give you more torque to bust those open. I would also advise, from experience, have some gloves on that have padding on the knuckles, because when it breaks loose, your hand's gonna go with it and probably hit a piece of metal underneath the vehicle. So you want to be ready for that. All right, let's climb under here, get our drain pan in place. Now this is a little tip. Because these bolts get really tight, we want to crack open the fill bolt first. Reason being, if you can get your drain bolt off and you drain all your fluid, but then you can't get your fill bolt loosened for whatever reason, then you can't add fluid. So we want to get our fill bolt broke loose first, then we'll do our drain bolt, and we'll go from there. We also have, this uses Honda dual pump fluid too. Honda fluids typically, other than motor oil, if you have a Honda product and you're changing automatic transmission fluid, CVT fluid, rear differential fluid, hypoid gear oil fluid for the transfer assembly, you're going to want to get the Honda product from the parts department, because it's not the same stuff as you'll get from an auto parts store. So this is Honda dual pump fluid 2. It runs anywhere from $10 to $12 a quart at your Honda dealer. This manual says it takes 1.92 quarts. The last time I did it, it took 2. So I've got partial. I always write it when I open them that this is open, use it first. And then I've got 2 full ones with me right here. So I have just shy of 2.5 quarts here. So I've got plenty. And then what I use to fill it is this. So this little contraption goes down in the bottle, and then it pumps the fluid out. So I'll put this into the fill, and I'll pump it out of the bottle like that. And it does take a little while because it doesn't pump a lot of fluid. The drain bolt is on the driver's side, and it's the one that's an 18 millimeter crush washer. The fill bolt is actually in the back, facing the back of the differential. What you're going to find is by this jack point, you have a hole right there. That is your fill bolt, and it says DPSF right there. So if we look at our bottle, that stands for the dual pump fluid, the dual DPF. And so that's going to be our fill bolt, and there's that 3/8 inch I'm talking about. So I suppose with that hole you could use a contraption to get in there, but you can also get under this bar possibly, and I think that's how we're going to do it. And then on the driver's side, coming past our jack point right there, and I'm on the passenger side, so coming around this way, there is our drain bolt. Okay, trying to crack the fill bolt open first. I was able to get that in there, so I'm going to put my pipe on the end of my wrench this way to give me more torque, and I'm going to pull it towards me to crack that loose. Alright, so that was successful. Alright, so this is our drain bolt. This is the one we're just going to loosen. We got our pipe on this bar, and I'm going to be pushing it this way to loosen. So I protected my hands, but I hit my elbow on the jack, so you got to be careful. Because my jack is where it is, instead of moving it, I can't quite get my drain pan under where it needs to be because of the jack position, so I'm going to use this plastic cup. So we took the washer off. This is the magnet I was talking about on the end. It is extremely clean, so I'm going to pick a clean part of this orange rag and wipe the magnet with. It is not even dirty, so that is an extremely good sign that this rear differential is broken in completely and not getting any metal shavings at all. So that's over 15,000 miles. So that's a very good sign on that. So we're going to put this drain bolt back in. Got our new crush washer on. Stop dripping on me. Alright, so we're going to torque that down, and then we're going to take our fill bolt out the rest of the way and start putting in new fluid. We're going to tighten this up. Okay. Get my rag so that I can see my crush washers. You always got to make sure those crush washers come off with the bolt, or if you add another one you can end up with a leak. So you want to dispose of the old crush washer. Take it off right here. This is the old one. I'm gonna take my bolt. It's already nice and clean, but go ahead and clean it. I'm gonna take my new crush washer. This is the 20 millimeter. The other one was the 18. So I'm gonna put our little tube inside the bottle. I'm gonna screw it on. This is our pump. I'm going to put the hose up into that hole. That's what it's called, the fill plug. I'm going to hold my bottle and just pump the top. Now our fluid is going in. I'll put a link to this stuff in the description, so you can find this. This is very inexpensive to buy a little pump like this. it was so cheap, I even bought an extra one just in case this one ever breaks on me, so I don't have to wait to get one if I partway through a job and it breaks or something. Okay, it's starting to drip. This is not easy to get to. Alright, got it started. That's it. Wipe up our mess where it dripped a little bit on the differential support bar. And then we'll grab our socket. Okay. All right. Okay, so now that our oil change is done and our rear differential change is done, we had left the tire rotation. While the oil was draining, we were getting the tires off. So on this vehicle, the front tires go to the rear tires crisscross over to the front on the opposite side. So all of our tires right now sit where they will go back on the car. So once we took them off, we put them in the right position. While we were doing that, my wife actually found this. She was getting rocks out of the tires. So every time you rotate them, you should look at them. We usually use a small screwdriver to take rocks out of the tread. And look what she found in this one. Right there. That's a screw, some threads sticking there. So we're going to be looking to repair that before we put it back on. All right, so first thing we got to try and do is get a hold of this screw thread. Oop, that wasn't too hard. You know what? I don't even know if it went in far enough. Well, there, now I'm in a dilemma. I don't know if I should do anything. Like, it's a screw that broke off in the wheel. It only went in. Oh yeah. I'm not gonna do anything. It went in about that far. So we don't have to plug that one. So that just snapped off. It was in the surface. It was barely sitting in there. Alright, so we're got all of our both wheels snugged up, so we set it down. While we're torquing down our lug nuts, we could be letting our engine run to get that oil through the system and reset our oil life. So I'm going to go ahead and start it, reset the oil life, and then we'll torque the lug nuts down to 94 foot-pounds. Okay, we're gonna turn it on, see what the temperature is, because I have been sweating. Ooh, it's saying it's only 87. It feels a lot warmer than that. So we're going to reset our oil life. Settings. Go to vehicle. Going to scroll down to maintenance. Now we are going to reset all. So the oil life is now 100%. Okay, so you're gonna need a torque wrench to make sure that you're torquing these correctly. I've got this set at 94 foot-pounds, and this is a 21 millimeter socket, and then this is our lock key for the lug nut. It's specially keyed. So what you want to make sure when you're torquing down your lug nuts is that as soon as you hear that first click on your torque wrench, you stop and you don't do it anymore. You go every other one till you've got all 5 or however many you have. This one has 5 on it. So you just do it one time, and then you'll know that you have your torque correctly. They do say you're supposed to check the torque again after like 25 miles of driving. I do that, but I've never had one loosen up. But just so you know, that's a good safety thing to check the torque after you've driven about 25 miles. You don't have to watch me do this in the rain. So that'll finish our work for today, and thank you for watching. Alright, so we pulled the car out of the rain to retorque the lug nuts. We let the vehicle sit for 10 minutes or so and check the oil. This was a 5.7 quarts, and it is perfect, right up to the full line. So that's exactly where we want it. So we're good at 5.7 quarts. Oil change is done, tire rotation done, and rear differential done. So hope that's been helpful.